Kevin Kepple, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you. Where are you joining us from today?
Dallas, Texas, home of the awesome
Wonderful.
winters.
Yeah, hopefully the weather is nice there. It's been snowing all week here. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. I'm not sure how many total inches we've received, but it's literally been snowing nonstop all week. So
Yeah. Oh my
we, we're
gosh.
we're just boning up, for a nice white Christmas. It's a pleasure to be with you. Today, we're going to be talking about impactful executive coaching. Before we get started, I just wanted to briefly introduce Kevin and share a brief bio. Kevin Kepple is an executive coach and host of the Unlock Your Freedom podcast. And Kevin, I would love it if you could share just a little bit more about your coaching practice, your experience, as well as your podcast and what that's all about.
Sure. So, yeah, I get to gratefully work with different types of leaders to really help them spend more time doing what they love and really bringing their greatest work into the world. And we do that by really helping them align with whatever their natural genius looks like. And, that's the whole deal, right? We want to grow as much as we can so we can give more. And, as leaders, that's the deal. So how can we influence people in more productive and profound ways? And through our podcast, we kind of increase our volume and connect with different types of leaders and help them unpack how they like to serve, and with hopefully actionable ideas that inspire and empower the folks that come and listen to what we have to offer.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And I can say, obviously we're on this podcast having a conversation today. I find it enriching and invigorating to have these conversations with thought leaders and coaches and executives, just like I know you do on your podcast. I think there's just tons of value in having these conversations. So I appreciate you taking your time to come on with me and to share your insights and wisdom with me and my audience. Let's go ahead and just launch on in and talk a little bit more about executive coaching. What is it about executive coaching that got you into it? Why is that a big focus of what you do? And then we can start to talk about how to do that more successfully and impactfully.
Sure. So, like a lot of people, I went to college and had no idea really what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something probably in the business world, which is a huge, massive, wide open thing to, go after, but I just didn't have any clarity. And so I went through college and got out, and I didn't really get much additional clarity. I got a degree, which was awesome, but I got into professional sales. And like a lot of industries, if you're successful in your role, you get promoted to leadership positions and suddenly you're in charge of a team or people. And that was pretty overwhelming. So I really had no idea how to lead. I thought it was, telling people what to do, which is not leadership, that's management. And fortunately, I did have the wherewithal to hire a coach. And man, it was great because it's so nice to have somebody who's a little farther down the road than you, or maybe a lot farther down the road than you, to help you see, where you're wasting your energy or blocking it or simply not even using it in productive ways. And, it's not to be perfect. It's just to help you see what better looks like. And, it's really powerful because if it's you alone, you're just in this echo chamber, and, you don't know if the feedback you're giving yourself is accurate. And then you can start falling, victim to your own limiting beliefs and stories, and it can really hamper your growth. And like I said earlier, the point's to grow as much as we can and give it all away. And one of the best ways you can do that is find somebody that you believe in, that believes in you, and just be humble and help go after what you want together. It's a lot of fun, and it's really powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful. And, in this space that we work in, we want to make an impact. We want to influence and see the ripples of the work that we're doing, and coaching, is one of those great ways to do it. And if we are impactful with one executive coaching client who then turns around as a more effective and impactful leader within their organizations, they may impact, in hopefully positive ways, hundreds, if not thousands of employees and their families. That's a lot of ripples. And so that's something that I also feel strongly about and am excited about in this work. You also mentioned something that I think is really important, and that is the echo chamber idea. I think all human beings fall into that trap. We all have our own biases. We all have our own baggage and assumptions and mental models, the way we make sense of the world. And because of that, it's just very, very easy to slip into kind of this mindset of, if you think a certain way, that's what everyone else thinks. If you've always done it a certain way, that's the way you should continue to do it. To have a perception of yourself that may be completely out of whack with how other people perceive you and those interactions that you have with them. And so that's one of the greatest benefits of having a really skilled executive coach, is having someone who can, they can be the mirror that you hold up in front of yourself. So you can have some realistic feedback. You can talk through issues. They can ask all the right questions and help you think through things in ways that perhaps you haven't considered before. Get out of your echo chamber so that you can actually look at things with fresh lenses. And when you can do that, you start to shine a light on those hidden areas, those areas that maybe are, weaknesses or opportunities for growth that previously you either hadn't been aware of, or you were kind of vaguely aware of them, and for whatever reason you decided to kind of stick those on the shelf and not think much about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on such a great point. The coaching environment is so powerful, just to have a safe place where you can get your thoughts out in front of you. And, there's not really a bias. And if there is a bias, it's to help you get whatever it is you want. And it's great to have somebody help you maybe just see where you're not seeing things accurately. And so often we make these judgments of ourselves, or judgments of situations or people, and whatever you judge, like, that's the end of your understanding, because then you're like working to prove this judgment right. And if it's some belief that limits your behavior, then that's gonna harness you and keep you in this like static position, and you continue kind of defending the fort of that belief instead of progressing and evolving to new levels of you. And there's no stay the same in this world. If you're stuck with limiting beliefs, you're actually regressing, because the world's still revolving around you, just not probably in the way you want it to revolve around you. And so I think just having humility is such a massive superpower. And, humility to me is, seeing the good and the value in other people and in their ideas.
Yeah. And again, we all have those limiting beliefs. You and I have them. Those people we work with have them. It's just part of the human condition. So the question isn't, it's not, let's get rid of all limiting beliefs, because it's just part of life. It's part of what we navigate. But we can learn how to help in a healthy way successfully cope with and overcome those limiting beliefs, and leverage, the naysayers, and kind of reframe and repackage any of those types of thoughts into motivation that can spur us on to do really cool, great things. So rather than slipping into rumination and being debilitated, by these not feeling enough, or imposter syndrome, or all these different things, rather than that, we can find our confident calm. We can focus in on what we are capable of. We can focus on the here and now, and taking like that next step, or that next couple steps to move things in a positive direction. All of that will help us get to better outcomes, help us to gain confidence, help us to build trust with others around us, which will then allow us to be more productive and effective and innovative and, successful as we're more collaborative. So it starts to build off of each other, right? And it all starts with, recognizing that, yes, we have limiting beliefs. Yes, things don't always work out the best possible way. And sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes it's just the circumstance. It's just the structure, the system around us. Ultimately, we get to respond, though. We get to choose how we respond to those circumstances in the surrounding context.
Yeah, I think that's one of our greatest gifts that, God, or wherever you like to think of that you came from, gave us, is that power of choice. Anger comes to us automatically, right? We have to choose happiness, and, chaos comes automatically. Problems come automatically. We have to choose peace. And it's okay. Like you said, we all have limiting beliefs, and it's important that we make new decisions about ourselves, new decisions about the world. And sometimes we just have to be okay not having all the answers. And I think it took me about 3 decades to get to the place where I could say I don't know and mean it, because I was all ego from pretty much age 15 to 30. And like, I thought I had to know everything. And if I didn't, something was wrong with me, because, the imposter syndrome you mentioned, it's like everybody else seems to have like this handbook to like life. And I guess I just didn't get the instructions. And, then you fall into that comparison trap. And, Teddy Roosevelt said it so brilliantly: comparison is the thief of joy. Because if I compare myself to someone else, that's not a fair comparison, because we're different backgrounds, different people, and it's either we feel inferior or superior every time we compare. And that's a massive disconnect. And if you're not connecting with people, like, you're definitely not going to be able to co-create or co-elevate. And alone, you're a one-person band, and there's always going to be blind spots that everybody has. Nobody's good at everything. And it's so important that we, find people to complement the things that we do well, and, whatever it is they do well, and get together and, really create something special that you couldn't do by yourself, which is obviously synergy.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fantastic. And again, I think back to the people that I've worked with recently, and inevitably imposter syndrome shows up over and over and over again. And I think most leaders, people who find themselves in managerial leadership and executive roles, they often find themselves thrust into those roles without a lot of preparation. Most leaders haven't been trained on how to be successful leaders. They were good at whatever they did. They had technical expertise in whatever functional area they were in. And then because they were good and effective in that job, they got promoted and now they're in a leadership position. They don't really know how to lead teams or people, and they're just kind of figuring it out as they go. And so it's natural that you would have imposter syndrome in that situation. And then you would compare yourselves to other people around you. There's all this talk around executive presence. So you have people who are blustery and kind of this faux confidence and acting like they have it all figured out. And then you're like, well, I don't have it all figured out. What's wrong with me? So the reality is they don't have it figured out either. Like they're pretending.
Right.
And it's one thing to develop some internal locus of control and some confidence. I think that's important, but faux confidence doesn't really mean much of anything, and most people can see through that. So if you find yourself in a new leadership role and you're struggling to get your footing and you feel that imposter syndrome, sometimes people will refer to fake it till you make it. Now, I'm not a fan of that term. Particularly, it just seems inauthentic to me, to fake it till you make it. But in its essence, it's the reality that we're all learning along the way. I tend to use the phraseology around, you're like building the plane while you're flying it. So I'm not faking it till I make it. I'm not trying to pretend that I have it all figured out. I'm very upfront with my people saying, you know what, I'm new to this. I'm getting to know you. I'm getting to know the processes, the systems. I'm getting to know this new role. Together, we're going to do something great, but we're going to have to figure it out together. We're building the plane while we're flying it. There's going to be, good forward movement, but there's going to be times where we're going to have setbacks. We're going to iterate. We're going to learn from mistakes. We're going to grow. That's in my mind, a very different framing. And it's one most people can get behind. Most people recognize that the leader doesn't have it all figured out, that they don't have all the answers. They appreciate them being straightforward with them, and they appreciate being included in the process of the growth of the team.
And that's really authentic too. And that's a pretty important leadership trait, being authentic. It's like, hey, I don't have all the answers. And leadership is influence, according to John Maxwell, the godfather of leadership. And I agree with that. And I think that influence has kind of an equation that you have to work. And as a new leader, I know I try to work it backwards. I try to start with vision. I'm like, hey, here's where we're going. Let's go get it. And it was great as long as I was there telling people what to do. But as soon as I went away, the vision wasn't being manifested. And so it starts with trust. And when you're authentic, that's a great way to build trust. Because if I trust the leader, that means I feel safe. And if I feel safe, that means I'll go into the unknown. And that's the only place I'm going to create something new is in the unknown. And when I trust you, the leader, I also feel, connected to you. And when I feel connected to you and your vision, that's when we get to co-create and co-elevate. And I think it's really, coaching or leadership, it's really important that the focus is, transformation. Obviously, you're here and you want to go here. And, with coaching, there's lots of different types of coaches, right? There's people who do like tactic specific. It's kind of like level 1 coaching. It's like, hey, I want to maybe, this specific area I want to get better at. Maybe I just want to be better at communicating with people. Maybe I'd be a better listener. It's like, okay, cool. Stop talking so much. Just ask good questions and actually listen. Or maybe it's, a whole specific area. It's kind of level 2. I want to be better, with relationships and a professional setting. And then level 3 is like what we're looking for. That's transformational coaching, which is like where you help people create, deep insights about themselves and about life so that they fundamentally shift the way they do things. And as a leader, you can really create transformational leadership. And it's so simple. It's, helping people understand where you want to go, but trusting them to use their unique gifts and abilities to get there. And, whatever plan they bring you, you can make it better, sure. But if you tell them, hey, do it this way, then what's the point in hiring brilliant people or talented people? And, Steve Jobs had that great quote when he was at Apple the second time. He's like, hey, we don't hire smart people so we can tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. And the goal is to inspire and empower, right? Because if I inspire you, I stimulate you to action and motivate you, and then empower, give you the tools and the knowledge of what to do with that stimulation. And it's so simple, but it's not always easy.
And that takes a different level of maturity and personal security, personal like centeredness, and to be able to acknowledge, that you're bringing the team around you to leverage their expertise. You are not the end all be all. You are not, as the leader, the expert. They are the experts that you're leveraging, right? And it's kind of the old model, the old school approach to leadership, where you have, the boss, the manager, the executive, who kind of pulls all the strings and kind of almost manipulates and uses carrots and sticks and levers to get people to do what they want them to do. That command control model, that more kind of top down, authoritative kind of a model to leadership, just doesn't work in the modern world of work. I mean, there are particular circumstances where that kind of approach can be effective in the short term, but as a general approach in the knowledge economy, it's not an effective approach. And if you make it all about you as the leader and everything has to funnel through you because you're the expert, you're the one that knows, there's no possible way that you know everything. So if you try to do that, people are just going to see through it a mile away, and they're going to think you're an arrogant prick, and you're not going to get the best out of your team, and you're going to be a bottleneck and blah, blah, blah. If you can't acknowledge that you're hiring the best people, who probably are better than you in technical areas, if you can't do that, if you're not secure enough in yourself, and with your leadership style and approach to be able to do that, you're going to end up hiring subpar people, having a subpar team. Everything's going to funnel through you. Your team isn't going to perform well. You're going to look bad as a leader. So ironically, the best way to be successful as a leader and to look amazing and accomplish really great things with your team is to have some more intellectual humility, to lean into their potential and expertise and support them and develop them. And when you do that, then the sky's the limit in what you can achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just reading Dan Sullivan's Who Not How, and it's like, man, such a brilliant book. Like, I don't need to be the one doing the how and everything, because it's going to be a really slow roll if I am, because like I don't hire people to build a website for me and then like, hey, let me teach you about coding, which it's going to be a really short conversation because I know nothing. And it's really frustrating when you find yourself doing things that you have no talent at. And to your point earlier, it's like, building your plane as you're flying. Like Johnny Carson has that great quote. He's like, jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down. And that doesn't mean just run, into the fray without a clue of what's going on. But it's like, hey, take intelligent action. But, once we get into action, we get immediate feedback of some sort. And maybe it's one more way not to do it. But if I'm just, constantly telling people what to do and creating these expectations, that's really dangerous, because if I have expectations of myself or other people, like I don't really leave you an opportunity to win, because if you do what I expected, that's what I expected. And if you don't, you failed me. And like, man, that's really a hard way to move through life, because you kind of create this fear-based culture. And if I'm constantly in fear, I'm not creating, I'm just reacting to whatever is. And every time I react, I create resistance, and that leads to more resistance, and on, and then stress and overstress, and it's just chaos, and there's nothing innovative happening. And it's just like this Groundhog Day version of your business, but it's not like fun like Bill Murray was having in the movie, right? It's like less and less effective and less inspiring to you.
Well, remember in the movie, he had days where it was fun, but he also had like depressive episodes, and he had like,
It got dark.
like he had the whole swing, right? And that's the reality when you're in a Groundhog Day kind of a scenario. Like it's just not a sustainable thing. Like people have to wake up invigorated, ready to go to work and do cool things, working with great people. And if you as a leader can't create that kind of an inclusive environment of belonging where people feel like they can bring their whole authentic self to the work, and that they can do what they do best each and every day, if you're not creating that kind of an environment, then people just naturally over time will burn out. And it could be that overall the organization's a good organization, overall the team's a good team, overall you're a good boss. But if it becomes stagnant, that's the kiss of death. Not only will you no longer be innovating in a way to add value to the market to help you maintain your competitive advantage, to continue to exist as an organization, but people just won't be engaged. They won't be invested as much. They'll start to go through the psychological withdrawal or the quiet quitting. They'll start to be looking for other opportunities that will excite them. And so let's just focus on creating that within our teams. And there are so many different ways you can get coached. So when we talk about executive coaching, like you mentioned, it includes a whole lot of things. Ultimately, one of the greatest benefits, I think, is for anyone listening, anyone who's in any sort of leadership capacity, to take some time to do some self-reflection, consider where your strengths lie, where some of your weaker areas are, maybe some of the gaps that might exist in how you approach and deal with your team and in your interactions with other people and how you perform your job. And then reach out and have some initial conversations with some coaches. I'm of the belief that pretty much everyone could benefit from having a good executive coach, just like most people can benefit from having a good therapist. Most people will benefit, just having those external people that you can run things by, you can get input back from, like that is just super, super valuable in the super messy, complex world that we live in. So if we want to continue, to put our best foot forward, to lead effective teams where we help our people to put their best foot forward, then I think coaching is a really great way to go about gaining that self-awareness that you talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what, the power of coaching is. It's somebody who tells you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear to get where you want to go. And, if you're a professional, like, I mean, look at any professional athlete, they have a coach. If you were watching, an NFL football game, there was no coaches on the sideline, that would be wild. Or, if Roger Federer didn't have a coach, that would be odd. Right. And if you want to be a high level professional, you got to treat yourself like a professional. And it's like so simple. If I want to be above average, I got to do things that are above average. And, average players don't have coaches because, they're okay with the status quo. That doesn't make them bad people, but if you want to do exceptional things, then you have to do things that other people aren't doing. And not all coaches are the same. Like you said, find somebody that resonates with you, that their values line up with your values. And even coaches that I had that I didn't feel like were probably the best fit for me, I still got a lot out of the interaction.
Yeah.
Because I mean, just the universe rewards effort in that way, I feel. And find somebody that resonates with you, and have a call with them, or just read some of their content, watch their videos, and connect with them, and just go into it with a very open mind and open heart. See where it can go.
Yeah, I love it. Kevin, it has been a real pleasure. I know at the time I need to let you go here in just a minute, but before we wrap things up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Sure. Yeah, I'm on pretty much any social media. So Kevin Kepple, a lot of time on Instagram or LinkedIn. I've got a free masterclass that I offer a couple of times a month too. It's kevinkepple.us/ownyourgenius. So if you want to get around some like-minded people on like-minded journeys that are looking to go further faster, we'd love to see you join us there. And, a final word on leadership and coaching. I think one of the skills that's often overlooked is kindness. If you just are intentional about being kind more than you're being right, really good things are going to happen in all of your relationships and interactions. And that goes for, yourself too.
Yeah.
You got to love yourself first, or you don't have anything to share with other people.
Yeah, well said. Kevin, it's been a real pleasure. I encourage my audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Kevin can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day.